Okay, so last week we were working on the lesson 2. We went over fixing this image. I think that the last lecture was it was a lab day, so I quickly went over this again. Even though we talked about it on Wednesday or Tuesday, except we were using Zoom, so the video came out messed up, so I had to re-record it the next day. But I think we finished this, right? We went through all the steps, cleaning it up. So next thing we could look at is, let's see, I think there was a second part to that lesson, if I'm not mistaken. Go to lesson files. Oh no, the second part was the bike, never mind. Okay, so we got that taken care of, and I already saw some of the submissions just now. Looks really good so far. So that should hopefully get you familiar with how adjustments layers work and how the layer mask works. So hopefully you kind of got used to that. And let's see, we already did lesson 3. So this is the next lesson, lesson 4. Let me see, let me link this real quick in the Discord. Oh, and Girly is here. Okay, I'll make sure I mark you present. Let me do that real quick before I forget. And Girly is here. Okay. Cool. So go ahead and click the link and download that. So we're just going to download the whole folder here. I guess it's kind of a big file. It's already, what is it? We're already at 40 megabytes. Okay, done downloading. Now let's open this up. Extract. Wait, that's your assignments. Let me go back. It's this one. So we have O4 end, O4 start, beach, family photo, and flower 2. So family photo is separate from the rest of it. So why don't we do family photo first, because it's kind of quick. So we have this family photo, and there's actually 2 layers. If you open up layers, you'll see there's this image, and then there's this image, and they're just on top of each other. So the reason why there's 2 images is because they took 2 photos with the camera, and as you can see, one of them, the trees in the back are kind of dark, but the rest of the image looks good. The people's faces, everyone's looking at the camera, eyes open. The second image, the background looks better, but now his eyes are closed, and then they're looking in the wrong direction. So there's easy way to merge these 2 and basically just have the best of both pictures. Okay, since their heads are in about the same position, they're not too far off. All we need to do is place this image on top of the other one. Well, it already is. We just need to erase parts of the image so that the picture underneath, so if I just take the eraser right now just to roughly show you what's going to happen, we're going to have to erase her and then show the other head, but obviously not like this, because that's going to look wrong, because first of all, the images are not aligned, and second, because that's a hard brush. So you could try to you could try to align it yourself. So if I take this and try to position it, well, I can't really see through it unless I change the blending mode or lower the opacity or something. Maybe change it to like multiply and then try to line it up this way. You could do that, and nothing wrong with that. It's just you're doing it manually. But you could also let Photoshop try to align it for you. So in order for Photoshop to do it for you, you just have to select both of the layers, and I believe it's under it's not under image, it's under file and automate, or was it under layer, one of these options has an option to automatically align the layers. Here we go. Wait, no, that's not it. That's align. I believe it's here somewhere. Automate, photo merge. No, I don't think it's that one. No, we'll use photo merge later. Photo merge is, I think it'll work for whenever we want to like create a panorama and merge a bunch of images together, stitch them together. But this one is under auto align layers. If you just select both layers, go to auto align layers, this will pop up, and you just leave it on the default on auto, and then just click OK, and it should be aligned now. So if I hide one layer, show the other one, you'll see that now they're pretty close. So Photoshop has taken the two images, it looked at the data in the image and tried to match it so that, I don't know, it tries to match it best as it can. So once it's aligned, you can create a layer mask for the first, the top image, which is layer 2. Okay, because I mean, you could erase. You could just take the eraser and make your brush really soft, and then maybe go over to Grandpa here and erase some of that, and then here too, just use the eraser. Problem with using the eraser though is then, I don't know, in case you want to make an adjustment, bring her face back or something, you're not going to be able to do it. You're just going to be, basically we just erased that much of the image, and there's no way to bring it back because I used the eraser, except Control Z of course. But it's just better to do it with the layer mask, just make it a practice. What is this doing here? Cancel. So instead of erasing, just click on the layer mask, grab your paintbrush. Right now the layer mask is white. Remember, white means you can see it. Black means you're erasing that part of the image. So I'm gonna get a black color here, and with my brush, let me just zoom in again and do the same thing. Just erase part of the image. Now if I do too much, like I'm doing right now, I can always change this to white and then bring it back if it was too much. So that's why it's better to do it with the layer mask. Same over here, we're gonna just get black and erase part of the image. This one, the alignment is a little off, but just erase enough and it looks fine. So that's pretty good. And this one, maybe make my brush bigger, just to have a softer erase here. And that looks fine. So that's all there is to it. Pretty easy. So I'll revert this back to normal and just repeat it one more time in case you didn't catch something. Again, so these two images are now misaligned. So I'm gonna say, I don't know if we have to actually select both layers. Let's just go to image, or edit, and yeah, you have to actually select them. If you don't select both layers, then it's gonna be grayed out. So select both layers and then go to edit and then auto align layers, and then just choose auto. You don't need to turn on any other option here. Just click OK, and that will now align it. Then you just create a layer mask for the top layer because that's the one that's covering the bottom one. So if you erase from the top layer, you'll see down to the second layer below. So that's the one, the top layer. We need to put a layer mask on there. Grab our paintbrush, pick black as our fill color, and just erase the parts that you want to fix. Easy. Any questions on that? Just for fun, I want to do, instead of auto align, what if we do select the two layers and do an auto blend layers? Auto blend, you can see it has two options, panorama and stack images. Let's choose stack because this is not a panorama, it's two stacked images. So let's do seamless tones and colors, and let's click OK and see what happens with that. And also, I'm not sure if this also auto aligns for you. It apparently does not. Obviously, it didn't auto align. So maybe auto align first and then auto merge. So let's do edit, auto align, and then edit, auto blend. And click stacked images. Click OK. Okay, that's not what we want. Alright, anyway, let's close that. So no questions on that one, right? Okay, so that was a completely separate thing. So the main lesson is this. It's these four files: flower, for start, beach, and end. So let's click on end first, see what we're gonna end up creating. And it's a postcard, kind of like for Photoshop 2 was working on a postcard, but it was Washington DC, and it was a little bit different. So we're gonna create something like this. You can see there's a lot of different elements here. If I open layers, got a bunch of layers here. We got a background, clouds, pineapple copy, flower 2, an adjustment layer over there, island paradise text, beach, flower, Hawaii, postage, and border. So let's open up for start and see what they give us to start with. And right now it looks like just a pineapple, but if you go to layers, you'll see not most, but a bunch of other layers are here. There's the pineapple, there's a flower, there's Hawaii text, but it's just in white, and then there's a postage. And there's a separate file, two separate files. There's beach and flower 2. So the flower image here and this beach image, they're gonna have to go into this one eventually. Why don't we keep O4 end open on the side so we could compare it, see how we're gonna place our images. Does anyone, by the way, need some time to download the files and follow along? If you do, let me know. I could like pause for a minute. If not, let's continue. Um, what should we start with? So we're gonna need. Why don't we do this first? This image right here. So I'm gonna kind of make it look like a photo, a Polaroid or something. But yeah, basically we're just gonna put a border around that and just put it in this image. So let's open up that beach image. And let's look at how to make a border around this. So if you want to make a white border around an image, there's a few ways to do it. The most crude way of doing it is probably if you just take the rectangular marquee tool and then say select transform selection. Actually, no. If you do select, not transform selection, modify instead of transform selection, go to modify and then do a border. And the border, basically what that does is it takes that single marching ants. It's called a marching ants, by the way, because it looks like marching ants when you have a selection. Instead of that single line of it, it makes it double, and according to how thick you want it, it'll make it that thick. Problem is it does it both sides, so it this becomes like the center of that 50 pixels. So since it's at the edge of the border, it's really gonna be like a 25 pixel border if I do it right now. If I say OK, see it came in 25 pixels. Well, not that you could easily tell, but you could tell if you look at the ruler here, if it's in pixels, and you zoom in, and it's not even at 25, it's slightly less than 25. So that's 20, and then this would be 25, so it's not even that much. So it's not a very accurate way of doing it, but once you do that, you can just fill that border create a new layer and fill that with white. And also my selection is feathered right now. We don't want that. So if you want to not have it feathered, because look, it's really soft when I fill it, kind of blends into the edges over here. All of these are lesson 4. Which other things are you referring to? These or? Oh, symbols? What symbols? You mean like oh, those are, we're gonna create those. I mean the island paradise, we're gonna type that ourselves. The postage should be here somewhere. Yeah, it's already in there. They're already here. A lot of these things are here. Just they're on a different layer. Does that answer? Is that what you meant, or talking about something else? Okay. All right. So you're welcome. So let's see how we could make this border not soft. I don't know why it does it soft by default every time I do it lately. Make a selection and I say, because like my feathering is set to 0, and when I do select, modify border, I don't expect it to feather, but it does for some reason. But anyways, when you have a selection, remember you can always do a select, and then if you go to selected mask, you can see how that selection is gonna be. It's like it's got really soft edges. You could change the view to, let's see, onion skin doesn't help on this one. Marching ants is what we already saw. There's the overlay. Here's on black, on white, black and white. Black and white kind of shows you the most clearly how that border is gonna look because it's been softened. But we have options here. Whenever we do this, when we go to that select and mask, there's an option here for contrast. So if you bump up the contrast, you'll make that edge a lot harder. And then when we click OK, we fill that with white. Now it's a solid white border and it's not feathered like that anymore. But if you do it this way, you will be covering part of the image, right? Because this border, why does it keep selecting? Okay, let me turn off auto select. Click on auto select and then move this aside. So it is covering like the edges of the photo. Maybe you don't want to do that. So if you don't want that to happen, you want to just actually add a little bit to the canvas. You can just scale up the canvas. So right now, if you look at the canvas size, it's 500 by 750 pixels. Say we want to add like 50 pixels all around, or 25 pixels top, bottom, left, and right. Then just add 50 to the width and 50 to the height. So instead of 500 for the width, change that to 550. Instead of 750 for the height, make that 800. And then click OK. And then, oh, by the way, when you do that, let's go back to canvas. There's this anchor option down here. I think by default it's center. I don't know if it's by default, but it looked like for me it was centered. So that just means it will grow from the center. If I did this, click like one of the top left corner, then that top left corner would stay there and then it would just grow from the bottom and the right side. So you want to keep it on center for if you're trying to create a border or something. So canvas size 550, 800, make sure it's from the center, click OK, and fill the rest of that with white or whatever color you want the border to be.
Sorry, can you go back to the border part?
You mean with the selection?
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you like confirm?
Okay, so first I make the selection with the rectangular marquee, and then go to select, and then modify, and then border. Okay, and then I'm gonna just leave it on 50, and if I fill it now, it's a soft edge. It's kind of blending outside the borders of my selection, and I don't want that, so I'll do Control Z, and before I fill it, I want to go to select and then select and mask, and then here you can increase the contrast. So contrast for the selection. So instead of feathered and smooth edge, it's gonna be sharp. And then just click OK. So it doesn't look like anything changed, but that's because you can't really see the feathering with this marching ants. If I go to fill it, then you'll see that it's filled with solid now. Like earlier it was feathered and smooth, now it's a hard edge. Is that what you wanted to see, or should I repeat a different part?
Is there a different way to do it? Or
Yeah, I was just saying that was like the most crude way to do it is that way. Um, if you want to if you want to add a border without covering any of this image, then you need to do a image canvas size and just grow the canvas by however many pixels you want that border to be. And remember, it's going to be adding the border on the left, right, top, and bottom. So if you want a 25 pixel thickness on the border, then it's going to be 25 this side, 25 this side. So instead of adding 25, you want to add 50 for both sides for the width, and then same with the height. So instead of 750, I put 800, and then my anchor, I want this to grow from the center, so all four sides grow equally. So make sure the anchor is like this, not here or any of these other positions. Keep it in the center and click OK. And then just take a white paint and fill that edge. Or
okay. Thank you.
you're welcome. You could also fill it on just fill another layer white and put that underneath. It's not the only way to do it though. Let's do file, revert. One more way to do it is by using a rectangle tool from your shape tools. You could just draw a rectangle and get rid of the fill by clicking fill and then clicking none. And then for the stroke, just change it to whatever color you want that to be. And then you can position that border however you like. And you can increase the thickness as much as you want. But just like the first way I showed you, this will also cover the image. So if you don't want it to cover the image, then just do the canvas size again and increase, let's say, to 550 and 800 again. But then at that point, you don't really need this anymore. You can just delete that and just fill it with white instead. Okay, so I'm not sure how they did it in the end file. Let's check it, let's compare it. I'm pretty sure they did the canvas method where they increased the canvas size. Because I don't think any of the images is actually cut off here. You can see this plant goes all the way. Actually, no, I think it is. It's too low quality to tell. But anyways, those are the ways you can add a border. Once you add the border, you're gonna wanna, if it's like this, it's a single layer, you can just drag this in here and then scale it down. Actually, don't scale it down until you convert it into a smart object, so that you don't destroy the quality. Because let's say I drag this in here, if I make this really small and then change my mind later and want to make it bigger, you're gonna see it got very pixelated. That's what happens when you shrink something down and then make it bigger again. You're gonna see that. So, but if you right click on that photo first and say convert to smart object, then it'll get this little symbol on the thumbnail here in the layers, and that just means it's a smart object layer. And if I shrink it down like this and decide to make it bigger again, you can see nothing's changed. It has the same quality. That's because
How
smart.
do you shrink it?
How do you what?
How do you shrink it?
Oh, I just did an edit free transform.
Ah, thank you.
And remember, hold shift to constrain the proportion so you don't like squish or stretch it. And hold alt if you want to scale from both ends. I mean, from the center instead of corner to corner. Um, so what a smart object does is it saves the original image in like a separate file. So if I double click on a smart object layer's thumbnail, you can see after editing contents, choose file save to commit the changes. Those changes will be reflected upon returning to o4start.psd. So if I click OK, it opens up this separate file, layer1.psb, and that's the original image that we started with. So when I converted it to a smart object, this is what it looked like. So I close that, come back to this. Let's add an effect to it, like a filter gallery. Let's do something like this. And because it's a smart object, if I double click that thumbnail, you can see it takes me back to the original image and nothing's changed on it. So it's basically saving the original, so you don't lose it. But we're not going to add an effect to this, so let me undo that. So just add the border to this. I think I added too much compared to the end file, made it a little too thick, but who cares. Let's edit free transform that and shrink it down a little and rotate it. So try that right now. If you're following along, let me know if you have any questions. I'll give you like, I don't know, 3 minutes to try that. I don't know if that's enough time. If you need more time, let me know. But let me pause the recording while you guys work on that. Okay, so next we need to slide that under the flower. And remember, the flower was already here. It's on another layer here. So to get the image under the flower, we just need to rearrange the layers here. And you could simply drag the flower layer on top of layer 1. By the way, we should rename that layer 1 to just call it photo. And yeah, and just drag it under the flower or drag the flower on top of it. Either way. Another way to rearrange the layers is to select the layer, or if you have auto select on, you could just click on a layer to select it. And let's say I want this to be on top of this one, and I'll click on it so it's selected. And I'll press Control left bracket, or sorry, right bracket. That's not the one. So the one next to the P is the left bracket. It sends a layer down in the stack, and the right bracket brings it up in the stack. We want that there, so I'll just leave it there. Shove it under this flower, and I think we can make it a little bit smaller and a little bit more straight like this. You could also scale a specific amount. Let me undo a bunch of times. Go back. Okay, so if you want to scale a specific amount, you can say edit transform scale, and then up here in the control panel, let's say I want it to go 50%. 50-50 for the width and the height. Or you could click this button here to link it, so whatever I do to the width will happen to the height. So if I type 60, the height will be 60. If I type 50 here, the height will be 50. So I'm just gonna, I think it's 50 in the original, so, or maybe 60. Yeah, it's probably 60%. So image or edit transform scale 60% and then enter. And then to rotate it, you could also turn on show transform controls. Just put a check next to that, make your transformation, and then accept it. And if you don't want to see that annoying bounding box, just turn off show transform controls. Okay. Next, let's add a drop shadow under the flower. We're gonna have other drop shadows as well. So the flower has a drop shadow. Hawaii and Island Paradise will also have a drop shadow. I don't think the second flower down here, I don't think that has a drop shadow. So sometimes you're gonna have multiple shadows. You want them all to be from the same angle. When you add the drop shadow, let's go back here. You add drop shadows through layer styles or this FX button in the layers panel. You could also double click in the empty part of that layer and it should bring up layer style. We've done this before. So drop shadow, you can adjust the angle of the shadow. You could adjust the distance. The spread kind of hardens the edge and makes it bigger, but let's keep that on 0 and just gonna maybe increase the distance and I don't know. Right now it's at 13 and 13 for distance and size, and my angle is like 103, but not important. Okay, just do whatever you want with that shadow. But I was mentioning if you have multiple shadows, you're gonna want to have use global light turned on if you want them to be from the same angle. I think that's the only thing that affects the angle. It doesn't really affect distance, spread, and size, or color. So use global light if you just want to keep the same angle on the shadows. Okay, so that should be pretty quick to do, so I'm not gonna pause for that, but let's move on to what else do we need here? I think we should do the sky next because there's a sky in the background. You can see these clouds. And we can add that to a brand new layer or we could add that to the background layer. So to add this type of cloud, we're not going to take a photo. We don't need one. We could just do a filter, render, clouds. Except now it's black and white. And so the way that filter works is it uses my foreground and background color. Since I had black and white, that's why it's giving me a black and white clouds over here. So just change that black background color to like a sky color, sky blue like this. And then do the filter, render, clouds. I think I made that blue a little too bright. Let me make it a little bit darker so it's easier to see the contrast in there. So filter, render, clouds. Still coming out kind of bright. Let me make that even darker. Okay, there's also filter, render, difference clouds, that just gives you basically the opposite color of what you chose. So instead of white and blue, it's black and red. So that will be our background. So just apply that filter to the background layer. Okay, going back to this photo, I feel like it's too much border. So it's good that we made it a smart object because I can double click on it, go back to this, and then say image, canvas size. Instead of 550, let's make it 530. And instead of 800, let's make it 780. Click OK. Just made it a little bit smaller, that white border, and I'm just gonna click this and say yes to save the changes that I just made. And it should update to have a thinner border now. Cool. Questions?
What was the size, the width and height of the canvas size that you chose?
Oh, just now?
Yeah.
I forgot. Here it's okay, that's not it. Image count size 53780.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. I just made it 20 pixels smaller. What should we do next? Let's do the pineapple next, because there's a slight change on the pineapple. So if you look at the end file, you'll notice there's two pineapple layers. Let me hide everything else that's on top of it. So I'm just gonna click the eyes of everything. Just hide everything except the pineapple. And then let's look at our pineapple. And let me put them side by side by going to Window, Arrange, Tile, or 2 up vertical. Except, why is it showing me this one? Let's drag this over here. So here's the end file, and here's what I'm working on. Let me hide the background as well. Anyone notice a difference between these two? I don't know if you could tell through the stream, but there's a lot more contrast on this one than this one. So here we have like brighter yellows and darker shadows. Makes it just have more contrast. They decided to do it in a weird way in this lesson. Here's what it looks like if I turn off the top pineapple layer, and here's what it looks like if I turn off the bottom one. You can see it looks the same. So they're using blending modes. They're using overlay to put two pineapples on top of each other. And when the blending mode is overlay, it somehow boosts the contrast. If I change it to some of these other blending modes, you could see how they affect that layer. So they went with overlay to boost the contrast. But I feel like it's, well, I guess there's nothing wrong with doing it that way. So let's go back. We'll do it that way, and then I'll show you other ways. So let me go back to window, arrange, and then let's change this to consolidate all to tabs. So it's back to here. So if you take that pineapple layer and just duplicate it by, you could right click and say, where is it? Duplicate. I always forget there is no duplicate option there. I usually just press Control J or Command J on a Mac. Should duplicate a layer for you, and now I have this pineapple copy. Or you could say layer. Where else can we duplicate the layer from? It's not under layer. I don't see it when I right click on it. Oh, there it is, duplicate layer. But Control J just does the same thing quicker. Anyways, I have the copy. I'm just going to change the blending mode to overlay. And there you go. Now it's sharper contrast. So you could do it that way. Or you could go to image adjustments. And why don't we try the most obvious one, brightness contrast first. Just boost the contrast that way. Pretty much the same result, I think. Arrange to up vertical. Put the end file here. Yeah, it looks exactly the same. Right, so either boost the contrast of it, or you could go to adjustments, levels, and then slide it in from the left side. Actually, I mean that works too, I guess. Pretty much does the same thing. You can also do curves. You could also do adjustment layers, but I think the simplest way is probably just that, duplicate it and change the blending mode to overlay to boost that contrast. Let's turn on our other layers. And let's go back to the end file. Turn on these layers. So here's our start file on the right side. I should switch the places. Put that there and put this here. Okay, so what are we missing? Let's put the postage stamp where it should be. So go to layers and again, make sure this is called photo. So postage stamp is the top layer over here. I'm just gonna select that layer. Turn off auto select because it might select the wrong layer. You see, I'm trying to click on it. It keeps grabbing the pineapple. So turn off auto select and click on the postage and bring it down here. And obviously they've lowered the opacity of the postage stamp. I think they also changed the blending mode, but doesn't make a huge difference. So if we just lower the opacity, it looks pretty much the same as that one. You could also change the blending mode to something like, which one works best? Maybe just overlay. Let me double check what they used in this image. They set it to multiply, so change that to multiply and lower the opacity. Like keep it a little bit stronger than they have it. I feel like it wouldn't be that faded if it was a stamp, so I'm gonna keep it a little bit more solid. Questions? No questions? Also, the last video I recorded was recording through my camera instead of my microphone, so the sound came out kind of low quality. I did change it in my screen capture device, but let me double check if it's using the right audio this time. Audio output. Okay, good. Everything looks good. Okay. So let's move on to Hawaii. Alright, we pretty much did the top part, so moving down to Hawaii. And you'll notice Hawaii on the end file. It has a gradient fill. It also has a border or a stroke around it. So here's the way we can add both of those. Let's start with the border first because that's probably easier. Go to layers, layer styles, and stroke. Let's change the color of that to, I guess, this green color right here. And you can see the stroke. I have a 4-pixel stroke on mine. Let's make it a little bit thicker, maybe 6 pixels. And then for the stroke, you have options like outside, inside, or center. Let me zoom in so we can see that better. Cancel, zoom in. Let's look at the A. So when I add that stroke to this, take off that bevel. Accidentally added that. So click on stroke and change the color. So this is outside right now. This is inside. If you want to keep like sharp corners, I guess you would want to do inside. And then center. You just go with outside. Now to add the gradient inside Hawaii, there's a lot of ways to do it, but most obvious one that comes to my mind is just to create a new layer on top of Hawaii and grab the gradient tool and pick the color that you want your gradient to be for your foreground and background color, or click up here for up here where you pick your gradient editor. You can pick whatever colors you want your gradient to be right here. So let's say I want it to be white, and instead of red, a similar orange color like that. So I've picked my colors there. And then with the gradient tool, I'll just click and drag from, I guess, the top of Hawaii to the bottom of it. Actually, let me go from bottom to top. You can see that it fills this whole layer, layer 1, that I just added on top of Hawaii. Let's call that gradient. It added it to the whole layer. So what we want to do is right click on it and say create clipping mask. And now it only shows inside Hawaii. You can also go to effects and you can do a gradient overlay and then pick your colors from there. Let's do basic, change this to different color. Let's make that orange a little bit stronger. I would do it the effect way, I guess. That seems to be the best way to do it because you can just turn it off and on whenever you want. You can change the color anytime you want. Just double click on it, go back to it, and say I want, I don't know, purple. Not very hard to adjust that if we need to. So method 2 I would use for that. Next let's add Island Paradise under Hawaii. Looks like it already had the correct font selected for me, which is Birch Standard, Birch STD. So that text we want it to be green. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but let's change the color. So to change the color of text, you have to be on the type tool and then click up here and change that to whatever color you want. So I'm changing the color from the control panel. You could also do it from the character panel. If I have it open, if you don't have it open, remember you go to window, character, open it that way, or you can click this button here. So that brings up the character panel, and then you could pick your color through here. It's really hard to see the text. That green on that yellow does not work good. That's the reason why they added the drop shadow. And also the drop shadow is going to be on Hawaii as well, so we'll just make it on one and then copy it to the other. So let's add it to Island Paradise first. Double click here, or click effects, oops, effects, drop shadow. I want this drop shadow to be, let me zoom in so you can see it better. I want it to be closer to the letters than that flower above that we did. So drop shadow. So let's bring the distance down a little bit, and also the size, bring that down so it's a sharper shadow. I'm not gonna change the angle because I'm using global light. So if I change the angle of that, the flower that we added the drop shadow will also change. If I want this to be at a different angle than the flower, I can always uncheck use global light and put a different angle on that if I don't really care about keeping the shadows at the same angle. Let's pick a brighter green. It's still kind of hard to read. And we also want that drop shadow on the word Hawaii, so you could go to Hawaii and click the effects button and click drop shadow and then add it that way. Or if you want the same exact shadow as Island Paradise on Hawaii, then go to the Island Paradise layer and hold the Alt button and drag that drop shadow to Hawaii. And it should add the same shadow. Hey, where's the shadow? Oh, you know what happened? It's since I put the stroke on the outside of Hawaii, that stroke is covering the shadow, I think. Let's check it. Turn off the stroke, and there you could see the shadow. So maybe I'll go to the stroke, and instead of outside, I'll do inside. So we can see the shadow. And then last, we need to bring this flower. So let's just drag it right from here down to start PSD. And free transform that, and let's bring it down in the layers. I'm gonna hold control left bracket and just send it. Let's bring it on top of the pineapple, but behind Hawaii and Island Paradise. They've also messed with the color of that flower. I think tried to make it more close to this color. I don't know if it's necessary, but if you want to know how to change the color, they just added they just did an image adjustments and hue saturation. Actually, I think they still have the layer there, so if we go to the end file, you'll see there's a hue saturation, and they just slid they increased the saturation plus 19 and the hue plus 43 if you wanna make it exactly the same as that. So just add a hue saturation on top of that new flower layer and bump that up a little and bump that up a little. Like my shadow on Island Paradise and Hawaii need to grow a little. Let's double click that. Increase not the size, but the distance maybe. Maybe a tiny bit spread just to make that shadow bigger. I think I'm good with that. If I want that same exact shadow now transferred to Hawaii, I could always replace the other one. Just alt click and drag this over the other one. Questions? That's it for this lesson, I think.
How do you do the gradient again?
Okay, on Hawaii, you can, best way to do it is just use a gradient effect on the layer. So just let's go to layers. Just click on the effects and then gradient overlay. Okay, so click on gradient overlay, and you can change the color by clicking here. And for the bottom, these little tabs that they put here. You could add more just by clicking anywhere down here if you want more colors in your gradient. But I'm good with 2 colors, so I click the other ones and just drag them down and they disappear. Double click to change the color. So it's a layer style. Or you could do it the other way, which is create a new layer on top of Hawaii and grab your gradient tool, create your gradient, and then clip it to Hawaii by making it a clipping mask, except I can't really see it because the gradient overlay is, I guess it's overriding that. So if I turn off gradient overlay, you'll see the other one. But it's better to do it with the overlay. You're welcome. And yeah, that's it for this lesson. Um, we could do a postcard for your next assignment, but I don't know. Photoshop 2 did a postcard. I don't see why we can't both do postcards. So Photoshop 1 and 2. That's it for that lesson. We only have like 8 minutes till break time, and then I have to switch to Photoshop 2. So yeah, why don't we just stick with that? Your next assignment will be a postcard. Let's add it to Google Classroom. Assignment for. By the way, I know last week we had class on Thursday. This week looks like we're only Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Right? Do you guys also have the same schedule? There's no Thursday class anymore. Okay, just double checking. Create a postcard. Oh, this is the same exact assignment that I gave the other class. Why don't we go to Google Classroom and just copy it? Or yeah, I'm not. No, well, it's not exactly the same. So I'm not gonna copy it. But let's see what minimum requirements I put on this. Must have text, must use at least one filter, must use layer masks. Yeah, sure. Keep all those requirements. So you gotta use some text, must use at least one filter, must use layer masks, check standard sizes for postcards. So usually they're like 5 inches by 7 inches or 4 inches by 6 inches. You could always Google it to figure that out. And a postcard is something that gets printed, so you would want to have the resolution at 300 ppi. Let's make sure that's under the right category so it's easy to find. Um, yeah. So I was gonna look at your last assignment, assignment three, but I only have five turned in. For two, we had eight of them, and then for one, we got eight of them. So I'm expecting around eight. So let those last few people submit theirs. 'Cause I know some of you are done. You're just perfecting it and maybe tweaking something. You didn't turn it in yet because you're not happy with it yet. I'll give you some more time. And then your new assignment is this postcard. Look at some examples of postcards online. I don't know. Do people still send postcards these days? For some reason, a lot of them look like this. Like when I Google it, like this one looks the same as the other one. This one, I think they're just made by the same people. These are more illustrated types. Since we're using Photoshop, just grab a bunch of photos to use. I mean, if you want, you could always illustrate stuff in there yourself, but that would be extra work. Not too many nice postcards. Postcard vacation. Maybe I'm not typing the right search terms. Or maybe it's because nobody sends postcards nowadays. Yeah, so unfortunately, not too many great examples online for your postcard. So you're gonna have to be creative.
Can you show us how to like insert other images into like that cat like insert can how do you insert the images into like other like a circle or like
Like
a
like this, right?
the letterings I guess, but also into like shapes and stuff?
Yeah, it all works pretty much the same. It's any solid part of the shape will be filled with the image. So let me create a new file. Let me also consolidate to tabs. So let's say I create I'll do it a bunch of different ways. Let's take our paintbrush for example and just I don't know, just paint some red here. Let's do some with a harder brush, maybe a different color. Let's do one with some text.
Excuse me.
Let's make that bigger so we could actually see inside of it. Uh-oh. That's weird. So for the text, holding shift squishes it. So it's the opposite with text. Don't hold shift when you're resizing text, I guess.
Mhm.
And let's pick a thicker font so we could see inside. What else? We could also use shapes, like a circle. And might as well let's do a custom shape tool. what the a custom shape tool. If you look up here in the control panel, there are some shapes that are included that you can use. Like right now, I think I was on flowers. So there's a bunch of flowers to choose from here, and they have a black stroke on them. Let me just turn that off. Okay. So these, after creating all that, I have 4 layers. Let's do one at a time. Let's do this one first.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
So let's grab an image to use. Let me just go to, let's grab something from Unsplash. Let's take this for example. Let's open it and copy image and paste it. Okay, so yeah, so I just paste it in there, or you could download it and then just drag it into Photoshop, or do a import, actually not import, place, embedded or linked. Embedded just means when you save your Photoshop file, the picture that you brought in is actually embedded in the Photoshop file. So it's going to increase the size of your Photoshop file. If you do linked, it's going to place like a preview image and it's going to link to the actual full size image. So if you save the Photoshop file, but you don't bring your linked image along with it, if you're, say, submitting it or using it on a different computer, the image will come in pixelated a little bit. So that's all that means. Anyway, let's paste it because that's the simplest way. And then just right click on that image that you want to be inside the shape. Make sure that image is on top of the shape. Right click on that image and create clipping mask. And it will stay in any solid area of that that layer. So these 2 parts are the only solids on this layer. Everything else is empty. Although I'm not seeing it's because I have an artboard. So when you have an artboard, I don't know why it doesn't show the checkered pattern to tell you that it's clear in the background. But there's nothing else underneath. It's just that. So if I painted like with the lower opacity on this layer, you would see that image just in a little bit more transparent than the rest of it. So it's as solid as you make it. It's so full opacity, you'll see the image. And it's the same thing on any of the other layers. So if I take this to the text, for example, just drag it on top of the text and right click, create clipping mask. Or quicker way is hold the Alt or Option button and then click between the 2 layers. That's it. So let's do this one now. Just drag it over, Alt click. Now it's inside that. Or drag it on top of this one instead and Alt click. Now it's in these 2 images. Easy?
If you can't do the Alt button, is the Alt the Option button on the Mac?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I think it's like the 3rd one from the left side on the bottom. It's either Option or Command. It's probably Option though.
So you Option and click.
Option and click right below the 2, right below the top layer, between the 2 layers basically, the border between them. You'll see, when you hold the button, you'll see a little box with an arrow pointing down. If you just hold Option and hover over that, Does it pop up? That's how you know it's gonna create a clipping mask.
While you press Alt.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And with that, we can take a break. Let's do a 15-minute. So just be back around like 8:20-ish. Let me stop recording. Okay, let's check out what we left off with for Photoshop 2. I think we finished this, right? Yeah, we did the stars and well, this is the end file. Let me. Well, I probably didn't save the working file. Or did I? But yeah, I remember we did cover the rest of this, right? Adding the Washington DC and everything. So I believe we finished it. And that's why I signed the postcard already for you guys as well. So we need to move on to the next lesson. Did I not save this already? Oh, I just opened it. Okay, so let's go to the notes in the OneDrive. And oh yeah, there was a little bit more to this lesson I forgot about, which was the panorama. So there's a part 2 here. And this one's quick. It's something that we're gonna automate. So we're not gonna do much ourselves. Just let Photoshop do it for you. I'm not sure if I downloaded that already. Lesson 9, part 1. Yeah, I think I just downloaded lesson 9, part 1 last time. So let's download lesson 9, part 2 now. And I'll show you real quick how to stitch these together to create one long panorama image. I'll wait for that to download so you guys can download it at the same time. Here's the link. I'm going to open that up. Where'd it go? Oh, extract. There it is. Okay. So we have DC letters, which is this thing. And then the rest of it is just a bunch of images that need to get stitched together. And we don't have to actually open them for this panorama to happen. The way we're going to do it is by selecting that folder. So actually we need these. We don't need DC letters because DC letters is just like a little thing on the tab. I don't know if there's like a bookmark or something, but we need all of these. So you could open them and then while all of these are open, you could go to File, and we saw Photo Merge. There was an option. So if we go to Image, or not Image, it was under Edit. I keep forgetting, and Auto Blend Layers. Well, that would work if they were all in the same file as different letters. Maybe let me just bring them together. We're gonna use another method, but we're gonna do File Automate and then Photo Merge. But before I try that one, I want to just do this real quick, see if it'll work this way. And just drop these all in this layer and let's line them up. Let's see what happens if we do edit, auto blend layers, and let's do panorama and content aware, fill transparent areas. I don't know if that's necessary. I'll turn it off for now, but seamless tones and colors, we definitely want seamless, so I'll keep that checked. Keep it on panorama and click OK and see what this is able to do for us. Okay, it clearly did not do anything that I expected it to do. Okay, I was just wondering if that would work for panorama on this, but apparently not. So let's just close these and do it the original way we meant to do it. So you can highlight all of these files. I don't know if it's the same on a Mac, but I can highlight these and right click and what happened to open with Photoshop? I'll just drag it into Photoshop. And that way it opens all of them. And then when you go to File, Automate, Photo Merge, it'll bring this up and it's going to say source files. So this is the files that you're going to auto merge together. You have to select either the folder that you want to get those images from, or you could say add open files, because I already have them open, so I could just click add open files and these will all be added here. And then we have options here: blend images together, vignette removal, geometric distortion correction, content aware, fill transparent areas. Probably wouldn't hurt to have them all turned on, but I'm just gonna keep blend images together and the rest off, and then click OK. And then this is gonna create one long image for us. So it's just processing right now. And there you go. So it stuck them together and blended it nicely. So we have a bunch of empty areas up here and down here. We should probably, well, let me,
Can you do that again?
yeah, I was about to, but this time I want to turn on the options, see if those options might fill this for us if we do it that way. So File, Automate. So again, it's File, Automate, Photo Merge. And then we want to do auto. It's not cylindrical, it's not spherical, it's not, I'm not sure exactly what collage would do, but just auto is fine. And then add open files if you have the required files open. If you don't have them open, you could browse to the folder that they're at. So let's go lesson 9 part 2, and then
You said merge to HDR Pro?
no, that's different. It's
Photo merge.
photo merge, yeah.
Automate photo merge.
And I'm gonna this time turn on content aware, fill transparent areas, and let's actually turn on all of these options so I don't have to repeat this. But I'm thinking maybe this time it might fill those empty areas for us. And yes, well, it did fill it for us, but so I'm not sure if it distorted it more, like it twisted this path up. Now these buildings are like leaning. So do it one more time. Let's do File, Automate, Photo Merge, add open files. might have been the geometric distortion that kind of shifted it and made the buildings sideways. So let me just turn on content aware fill transparent areas only.
This is a panorama.
And when you have like images stuck together, so you could, right? This is crooked. So it didn't do a perfect job. And these buildings are less distorted than before. I don't know actually. Is it the same thing? Either way, we could fix that. Um, so file, automate photo merge. You're gonna do auto. You're gonna do add open files if you have them open, or just choose the folder that they're in, and then just blend images together. We could fill those empty areas ourselves with content aware fill, but let's just let Photoshop do it for us. And I'm just gonna turn on every option: vignette removal, geometric distortion correction. Just turn those all on, and then click OK. And we're gonna have to fix the crookedness of this.
And the Washington D.C. is supposed to show too.
Well, it is. It's way over here.
Oh no, the logo.
Oh yeah. Um, you mean this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll add that later since it's not really a photo that Photoshop can merge for us. The other one's merged because it's like a continuous photo. I mean, the path here from the library leads to DC. So it was like separate photos that were taken of the same locations. So that's why it was able to merge it. If you just grab some random photo, try to merge it with this, it's not gonna work.
Okay.
So how can we straighten this? Well, what we could do is it's under filter. Let's see. Filter, adaptive. No, was it this one? No, not that one. Or was it this one? I forget how this works. But yeah, we're definitely gonna use this tool. So it's filter and then adaptive wide angle. So we have this constraint tool and a polygon constraint tool and a move tool. We also have scale. If you mess with the scale, that's just gonna zoom in and out.
Yeah.
And then we've got the polygon constraint tool. I think is new. I don't know if it was there before. It's a little bit different than the last time I used this, but using these these lines, we're supposed to somehow get it to correct itself, but I think we drag from here to see how when I bring it down here, it kind of like bends. That's what we want. And then how do we end it? Press enter. Yeah, this tool has changed. So let me figure it out real quick. The move tool do anything? That just moves the image. Maybe I just have to click OK and it'll do what it's supposed to do.
How do you move it up?
Move what up? The image, the whole image?
What does this tool do again?
It's gonna fix this bend, straighten the road, straighten these
Oh.
buildings.
Got it.
It's kind of confusing to use though. It's you click from here to here. And then it like auto straightens it. But then I don't know if we can adjust it. Yeah, we should be able to adjust it. Yeah, you move this around and then, but I'm not sure like the right positioning to put it on. I just bent it way too much. So you're just supposed to just drag this up and down until it looks good. I think I need to drag this one down. Nope. Oh, no, that's bending it too much. You see how it's like twisting the image though? Or bending it. Bring this. There has to be a rule though, just like the straighten or yeah, the level tool on the crop tool. You're supposed to drag it from like one end of a straight horizontal surface to another. This one too, I think we're just supposed to get the bending part. So let me delete that. Just press delete to start over. So basically where it starts bending, like from here to here, just click there and then it'll kind of straighten it, but maybe we could rotate it too. Oh yeah, we could definitely rotate it. That's what we need. So just try that. I'm gonna press delete so I show you again. Click where it starts bending. So from here to here. Oops, delete. From here to here. And then grab this and try to rotate it. So you'll see a circle and then two smaller circles. Grab that one smaller circle there and rotate it up a little because we want to level that and make sure these buildings are not like tipping. Okay. And then once you do that, you could maybe scale it to hide the empty areas on the sides. But if I scale it too much, I might cut off the tip of that building. So maybe just a tiny bit and then click OK. And then for those empty areas, we could just fill it with fill or edit fill content aware. That fills up the sky for us, and then same thing down here. Select all that. Edit fill content aware. And that's it. So we got the buildings to not be tipping over. Kind of, it's still kind of crooked, but could have done more. It's not exactly straight, but better than it was before. So let me revert this. Actually, not revert. Let's check our history states. See if we could go back to right before applying that filter. Window history. So select fill marquee adaptive wide angle. Okay, so there's what we started with, and then that's what we have now. So we kind of bended it or unbended it basically. some of the sky is not exactly the right color, so I could also fix that. Let's see, how should we fix the sky? Maybe select sky. And we could maybe try blending it so it's not all bright in one area. We could do image, maybe do an auto contrast or auto tone. Oh, that didn't really do a good job. Auto tone, nope. Auto color, no. You know those auto ones are doing what I want. You could do a filter blur and a Gaussian blur, but that's just gonna make it really blurry sky. It does, I mean, at least it makes it even, but and then you could always manually grab this color with a really soft brush, maybe on a different layer so we don't ruin anything. We can add soft brush, just brighten that up. Oh, my opacity is way down. Let's bring that up. Or do the opposite, just darken that area because most of the image is dark anyway. And then maybe blur it afterwards. Blur, Gaussian blur, and not so strong, just a little bit of a blur. A little bit as in, that's not a little bit, that's a lot. Let's do like a lot, 190 pixel blur. And let me get rid of this annoying guideline. These guidelines are locked sometimes, but if you grab the move tool, you'll be able to move it. If you can't move it, go to view guides, or yeah, view guides, and then if it's locked, it'll say unlock, or I think it has a check next to it. View guides, yeah, just turn off the check so you could freely move this guideline around. Let's get rid of it by dragging it all the way to the left. You guys want to see that again? I'll do it one more time and let's add DC letters next to it. So file, we can't revert this, can we? Because it's a it auto-generated this file, so we can't really revert it. So undo that, or close it, and do this again. Let's throw in a random other image though and see what would happen. Let's go down. Let's see if I have anything here. Okay, how about, I don't know, this desert. Or this bus. I don't know. Any random image will do. Let's throw this in, not here, but a separate file. Just curious to see what this filter would look like, or this automation. So file, automate, photo merge, add open files. And let's turn on all the options and click OK. See what it'll look like. Hope it doesn't crash Photoshop. Yeah, it's taking too long, so I'm just gonna click cancel. Who knows how long? Oh, actually, no. Spoke too soon. Some images could not be automatically aligned. A fill area could not be created. So yeah, it didn't know what to do with these. So just stuck them up there. But the rest of them got merged. So that's what's gonna happen if the image doesn't match. Okay, so just keep the ones that are supposed to be part of this panorama, and where did it go? File, automate, photo merge. Add open files, turn on every option, click OK. Right, so a new file gets created. It's called Untitled Panorama right now. And does a decent job, but it's a little bit warped over here, especially. These buildings are too sideways. So we fixed that with filter, adaptive wide angle, and we draw a line from the left side here, and you'll see that line kind of bending. So just bring it to just anywhere on the right side here where you think it looks straight. Actually, I don't know what happens if I bring it up here. Then it bends it the opposite way. So make sure you're dragging it below the grass, or below the road, I mean. And the lower you bring it, the more it's gonna twist it that way. So you want to kind of just figure out, just by experimenting, and Control Z. If it's too much, just see where the perfect angle is, and then you can always rotate it after. So
Excuse me?
mhm.
What's the purpose of this? How does this relate to Photoshop and like with because I'm in the job training program.
Mhm.
So I was wondering like how does this relate to like the work? Like
Well,
can you explain a little bit on how this particular works?
it's gonna depend on the job. I mean, different jobs require you to do different kinds of Photoshop work. So if you're, well, this is just general Photoshop. So just covering different range of topics. So one of the things you might want to do with Photoshop is merge photos together to create a panorama. So this one is part of the lesson, so we're covering it. But we'll do other things too, like photo retouching. Most likely, that's what you want to get into, I'm guessing.
Yeah, photo retouching and mm, well, this is also cool too, actually. I get to learn a little bit of a skill, another skill set.
Um, yeah. What kind of? Well, one of our next lessons, I think maybe you might find. How about photo restoration might be more relevant to. Again, it depends on where you're gonna be working, because there's a lot you could do with Photoshop, but we'll be doing photo restoration. Let me show you. It'll be like our final project, maybe.
Restoration mean?
Where is it? This one. This one right here. Like taking a photo like this one, completely destroyed, and putting it back together and adding color. Like we'll do that too, but that's a little time consuming and difficult, so I'm saving it for later.
Oh, that's pretty hard. I'm still a beginner.
Also, animation with Photoshop is possible.
Oh, yeah, animation. I'd love to learn that.
We'll cover that too. And I also had some. This one maybe not worth mentioning. It's a really easy effect. It's just a quick effect. Like when you,
Oh,
I'm
you're
sure you've.
adding people?
Huh?
Are you adding people? Are you adding something in the photo or?
No, I'm just showing you other things like that we could cover. This one again. This one's a quick one. We probably will include it. But
Zooming in, zooming out kind of thing. Is that what the concept is?
for
Like the
this,
purpose?
this
Yeah.
one, there's a filter for it. Forgot what it's called. No, not vanishing point. There's a word for it. Um, it's the effect of making things look miniature, like toys, by
Oh,
boosting, basically boosting um, the saturation and blurring around, like just having like a blur, but at a um, like at a certain threshold, like this kind of rectangle, and outside of that rectangle, you get a little bit more blur. I forgot what the effect was called.
yeah.
Tilt shift. That's what it's called. Tilt shift.
Helps.
And what happened to? I also had some models and dresses that we were gonna touch up, but I can't find those. But since you mentioned that you're in it for job training, I'll make sure to include that because that's something you'll do often, like retouching photos, changing the color of a dress or something. We'll do that too.
What color of a dress? Didn't we do that with like saturation? No, is that another tool that?
Yeah, same concept, but it could get difficult, like depending on the dress, the colors. Like changing a black dress to a different color could be really difficult. But sometimes they ask you to do that to save money because they don't want to take photos in different color dresses. You have to pay a model for that, so sometimes um, they ask you to do it through Photoshop. Anyways, let's finish
Thank you.
wrap this one up because yeah, we spent a little too much time on this one. Let me just crop the image a little bit. Let's set this to ratio, make sure this is clear so we can choose exactly how much we want to crop. We don't really need the edge here, especially since it looks like it's doubling this guy or lady. So yeah, we could definitely crop off that edge and this edge and maybe a tiny bit from there. Content aware fill these areas. Edit fill, content aware. So content aware fill is gonna work good on stuff like grass and the sky, but it won't work so well in other situations. That's why there's the spot healing and everything. Like for that photo restoration, definitely we can't do content aware fill. Um, and I think I liked the method of selecting the sky. and then picking one sky color here and painting the rest to match with a soft brush. I did select the sky so I could just do this and not worry about going over stuff, but I still want to kind of have a little bit of variation in the sky. So I don't know, maybe it's clouds or something, but not a solid blue color all the way. So I'll do that and then just blur it a little bit with a filter blur. We have all kinds of blurs, but the Gaussian blur is just the quickest and strongest blur you can add. Just do like 20 pixels there. Deselect. Actually, no, that blur looked weird. I'll probably not even blur that. But to add the where did it go? DC letters. We could just drag this into our panorama and pull it to the side. And then we could use the crop tool to extend this enough to fit this here and just drop that there. What does that say? Washington, D.C. Wait a minute. Okay, there's supposed to be more red here. I knew there was supposed to be more red. When you turn on the crop tool, there is an option to delete cropped pixels. Even if I'm making it bigger and I accept this, that part that went outside the border is going to get deleted. So make sure if you don't want it to get deleted, when you're using the crop tool, uncheck delete cropped pixels. And then extend that, place that where it needs to go. And we can bring this crop back in. Anyways, that's it for that one. I'm pretty sure it looks like a bookmark. I don't know what else that would be. So a bookmark and a panorama. Any questions on this lesson? Let's close it. Okay, what else do we have? What is this? Photoshop 1. I'm gonna close this, close that. We can get rid of some of these guys. Done with all these lessons. Just clean up. So the next assignment was gonna be a animation. The animation can it might be difficult at first, but once you get the hang of it, you'll see it's a really simple concept. You either have frame by frame animations like these, where you show one image each frame, and you can export it as a video or a GIF. You also have timeline animations if you want to be a little bit more fancy with your animation, doing things like animating a still image of a waterfall, for example, making it look like it's a video. So we'll cover both of those. But I still want to look at the lesson files though, because I don't know, they do help cover like specific subjects more thoroughly. There is a video editing lesson here, but we'll skip that because it's kind of buggy when it gets to video editing with that. Plus, it's really simple what we're gonna do with this lesson. They don't really do much. Let me see if there's an end file. Basically, taking all those images and just creating a slideshow. So you could do simple things like this through Photoshop, but it's probably better if you use After Effects for something like this. But all you're doing is taking these images and creating a slideshow and applying, like for this part of the image, where is it? With the dog. So you could put adjustment layers on top of an image. Basically, what you could do with images, you could do with video. Except you'd want to use After Effects for that because it's just a lot more advanced tools for video editing. With this, you could do very basic stuff. But it's kind of a large file, so that's the reason why I want to skip doing the lesson for this one and just jump straight into talking about animating and how you could edit and put videos together. Lesson 10, or what is it, 11? This one we'll definitely skip. This is using, you'd have to use a tablet for this. I mean, you could use a mouse, but creating like a painting effect, kind of a pointless lesson. It covers the mixer brush, which is kind of like a brush that makes it feel like you're painting with watercolor, or not watercolor, more like oil. I guess depending on the settings you put, it could be more like oil paint or water paint. But let me just show you what that looks like. If we just take, let's create a new layer here. I'll just paint some colors, different colors here. Do that dark blue and a pink, a green. So if you grab the mixer brush, first of all, Photoshop does give you like more brush-like brushes that actually like have texture on them, so it looks like you're using a paintbrush. Not this one in particular. This one maybe like a piece of sponge or something might look like that. But they also have special brushes. So that's general brushes. We need special effects brushes. Actually, no, not the special effects. Where did they go? Maybe I'm looking under the wrong place. Right here. We could change the angle of this, but if you have a drawing tablet, you'll notice that up here there's not only will it be able to detect the pressure of your brush, but also the angle that you're holding it in. But I don't have a tablet. Most of us don't have a drawing tablet. They're kind of expensive, those Wacom tablets, but it would be able to detect the angle. So it gives you like a really realistic way of painting by hand. But the mixer brush lets you actually mix colors together, create new colors like as if it's actual paint. Depending on how wet the brush is, you get like a more strong mixture. There's also some settings. There's dry, moist, do wet. But I picked random colors. If you mix green and red, grab a red. You should be able to get like a yellow, although it's not really working well. Also, whenever you paint with some colors and you continue painting somewhere else, it takes the colors that you last were on. It's like your paintbrush is still has paint on it because you're on that color over there. You could pick that up and paint somewhere else. Um, but anyways, that tool is there, but you need a drawing tablet to really take advantage of that. So we'll skip lesson 11. 12 we'll definitely skip because 12 covers 3D in Photoshop. I know 3D is cool and everything, but Photoshop is just not the right tool for 3D. And it's very buggy and they're phasing it out, so um what's this one? I think this is creating like a slideshow, but again, that's like another old feature that is becoming obsolete, so we'll skip that too. So yeah, the only lesson left pretty much is just this video editing one. I forgot why I skipped it last time. I think because it was a really large file and I didn't want everyone to download it. I'm gonna download it just to double check. If it's too large, we'll skip it. Okay, while that downloads, why don't we just get into animation in Photoshop. So for that waterfall effect, you're gonna want to go. Yeah, it's still downloading. Okay, forget this lesson. It's gonna take forever. Let's do Unsplash for finding an image of a waterfall. And the type of image you want to look for, something like this is not gonna work because that water is just too smooth. This is a long exposure shot, so whoever was taking this photo, they increased the exposure time. Basically, the hole on the camera stays open a little bit longer than it usually does, and that causes like whatever you're looking at to blur. So that's how you get these smooth looking waterfalls. But the reason why we can't animate that is because the way the animation is gonna work is we're gonna be taking the waterfall and basically scaling it down and pushing it down, and you have to actually see some texture in there to be able to tell that it's moving. So avoid waterfalls that look like that because you're not going to be able to tell if it's moving or not. So this would work, this would work, this would work. This one possibly, but it might be more difficult. I don't know if that one's a good one. This one would not work. So you're going to want to find a nice waterfall image. This one could work. I can't tell which one I did last time. Was it this one? No, this one has a guy in the front. Actually, I might have added him afterwards. but it's the same photos. They're still up here. Almost. They look pretty similar. Anyways, I'm just gonna grab this one. Change my mind. I'm gonna grab this one. So let's download it, at least medium size, 1920, 3165. Bigger the better, and then you could always scale it down later if you want to make it smaller. So let's go with this one. So first thing you want to do, actually before I cover this, let's go over the basics of animating in Photoshop. I'll show you the new file. There's two types of animation. You could do, if you go to Window Timeline, or you could switch your work mode to, let's see, Essentials. If you change it to Motion, it should bring up the timeline and just rearrange your panels and stuff to be better suited for animation.
Where do you go again? Sorry.
You could go to Window and then change your workspace to Motion, and then it'll open the timeline for you, or just go to Window Timeline. Because we don't really need any of the other stuff that comes with this. We just need the timeline. So I'm just gonna leave it on Essentials, or my own workspace that I created called David, and just bring up the timeline by going to Window Timeline. And this is what the timeline looks like. You're welcome. So you'll have two options. There's a drop down here. There's create timeline, create video timeline, or create frame animation. So the more advanced tool is the video timeline. More basic is the frame animation. Video timeline is closer to what you would get with something like After Effects or any other video editing software. And then frame animation, if I create that, it just lets you create a new frame and then fill that frame, or draw a picture on the frame, and then create another frame and draw a picture and create another one. More like a classic animation style. It does help you a little bit. So just a simple example, I'll take a circle and make it a hard circle. And say I want this ball to look like it's bouncing up and down or something. And maybe I'll draw the ball starting from like up here, create a new frame. And then if we look at our layers, I just have one layer here right now. I can't edit this ball. Well, I could move it down, and then in one frame it'll be up there, next frame it'll be down there. So we could do that for the first few frames, like showing the ball falling down. So create another frame. The way you create frames is by clicking the plus sign. So you could create a new frame, drag it down, create a new frame, drag it down, create a new frame, and drag it down. And then if I play all of those in sequence, it's like, it's showing it animating. But that's, you're doing it by hand. It's kind of rough and difficult. So it's better if you, make sure when you're trying to delete these, you don't press delete, because it's going to delete the layer. Click the trash can in the timeline. Better way to move this down is to create two frames. So first frame is where it starts, and on the second frame, place it where you want it to end. Let's say here. And then what you could do is, instead of manually doing all the in-between frames, you could add a tween. So just click the button next to the plus sign. It's like shows like a circle, like it's moving. Anyways, click that, and you'll see this tween option come up, and you could choose how many frames you want to fill in between 1 and 2. So let's say the average frames per second for movies and TV shows now is what, 30? So, well, we don't want 30 because we already have the 2, so let's put 28. So we have a total of 30 for 1 second of animation. And you can see there it filled it for me completely, and but then whenever it gets to like 30 and you want to add some more to this, maybe you want to create a new frame and show the ball maybe like, I don't know, squishing and stretching. Gotta hold Shift and Alt for this. Then you can't really do that on the same layer, because what happened now is on every frame it's gonna look like that. So when you get to that point, you need to create a new layer and basically hide the previous layer, and on the new layer maybe duplicate that one. Here, instead of creating a new layer, let me duplicate this one. Okay, and so for that copy, then I will squish the copy. And then again, I'm gonna have to create another duplicate of this. In order to squish it even more. And you gotta make sure you had the other one. So on this frame, oops, you see these are visible on all the frames, but you just need to highlight those frames and hide these, so you can't see them. Oops, not that one, hide. These two, leave this one. So from here all the way to frame 30 is that one, and then when we get to frame 31, we hide the circle, the original circle. We show this one, and then on the next frame we hide this one and we show this one. So it comes down and then gets squashed. But again, for like ball bounce and all that, you don't want to use Photoshop for this, again, because it's very, very primitive tools for animation. But I'm just going over that so you know the limitations of that. The biggest problem with this is that we don't have a way to ease the animation. I mean, you could do it manually, like make the ball look like it's speeding up as it falls. But as you can see here, it's a very linear, constant rate that it's falling. So it's not a very realistic way to do that. If you're using something like Adobe Animate, or I think even After Effects, they have graph editors, and you could, create like an ease in or ease out, so that you could have something start fast and then slow down, or start slow and then speed up, to get that more, the acceleration effect. Okay, so that's a tween animation. What you could do with tween animation, you could take like a walk cycle or draw a walk cycle. Like for example, well, the more frames, the better, but also the more work you're gonna have to do. Just take this one. I think I already have an example done for this one actually. Where did it go? Not exactly. I thought this was that. Never mind. But let me show you how you would animate this. You can open the image, copy image, Paste it in here. Let's delete these other layers. There are some tricks you can use to do this as well, like you can create a layer with a layer mask. Okay, and on the layer mask, just fill the layer mask with black, so everything is hidden. And remember, when you paint white on the layer mask, you could reveal the image again. Oops, make sure you're on the layer mask though. Right, so wherever I paint white, I will reveal the image. So basically, just have a little section of this that's visible and hide the rest. The problem with this though is in this image they're too close together and they overlap, so it's not really ideal. Work better for an image where they're like more far apart, so you don't have to worry about overlapping. Like this one, they're spread apart. Or this one would work because again they're not going to overlap. Let me take this one just to avoid the extra work, because if I use this one right now, I'm gonna have to manually separate these guys. I'm gonna have to take this guy and separate them this way. Take this one, make sure this one is not selected, and separate them this way, just to get them in their own box. But just to avoid that, I'm gonna use that other walk cycle that I found with the horse. So copy this one and paste it in. See if I get a bigger version though. Copy image and paste. And paste. Same thing. Okay, so anyway, point is this is gonna work good because I could fit them in a box, and then I could basically watch if I create a layer mask. You could see since I had it selected, it already filled the whole thing black for me and just left this white rectangle. But what you could do is unlink the layer mask from the layer, and then on each frame in your frame animation, all you need to do is move that layer mask to reveal the next image. Or better yet, move the image to show the next step. So on frame 1, I could show this guy. And then on frame 2, slide it over, show this one. Next frame, show this one. Next frame. Next frame. I think we're at the second row now. And also bring like a guideline down to show like where his head should be if you want to stabilize the video so the head is not bouncing up and down everywhere, or whatever part of the image. I don't know which part of the horse is stabilized while it's running. Probably the head. So the guideline would help you just keep the head in one spot to make the animation a little smoother. So let me just do the rest of these. That's frame 6 and frame 7 and frame 8. And did we have a third row? Yes, we do. Oops. Here's 9. Here's 10. 11. 12. I think that's it. Let me just hide that layer mask. Yeah, that's it. So there's 12 total. So all I'm doing is moving the image, but I'm disconnecting it from the layer mask. So the layer mask, which has a square right here, which is the visible portion, the part that's not masked out from this horse image, that will stay there. But the horse image will move around while the mask stays put. So that way on each frame, you reveal a different cycle, a different part of the horse's walk cycle. And when you play it in sequence, it looks like he's walking. And then you can export this as, if you do an export and save for web and choose GIF, you can create an animated GIF. Although I don't know why it plays faster here. If I actually save it, I don't know if it's gonna play that fast. There's an option here, by the way, for looping options. You could loop forever or just a few times. I'm gonna keep it on forever and then click save. Save it on the desktop as horse.gif. And where is my horse? There it is. So double click that. You can see it's playing the animation. You could also maybe open this with a web browser, maybe. Yeah, so now we have a walking horse GIF. Only save it as a GIF though if it's a small image. Don't do HD images as GIFs because the file size is going to become really large. GIFs don't compress like a video, so that's why you don't have movies in GIF format. You need video compression, or else it's going to be a huge file size. And also, GIFs don't have as much color as a JPEG, and GIF is the only format that you can't animate a JPEG or a PNG. So it's only GIF that has that ability to save as an animated GIF. But GIFs only have 256 colors total possible, so it won't work for nice quality images. So that's why GIFs are usually small and low quality. But if it was something bigger and you want to save like a nice HD version, and you're gonna want to export instead of saving as a GIF, you want to do export and then render video. And then you could save it as an MP4, horse.mp4. So this will have video options like the format. H.264 is a common one, so keep it on that. Size 1920 1080. I'll just leave it as that and click render. And here's the video. Okay, except it's not looping because I don't know if Windows Media Player has a nice, it doesn't loop very well. It stops for a second. But if you looped it, maybe, I wonder if I could open it with Chrome. Turn on loop. The pause is not as bad as in Windows Media Player. But yeah, you could do video or GIF. Okay. So that's how the frame animation works, but frame animations, like I said, is not as powerful as using the video timeline. And the video timeline is not as powerful as using proper video editing tools like After Effects. But it's more enough for like some basic things. Like for this, it'll work. But the timeline animation, the video timeline is gonna look a lot different than frame animation. So that frame animation is you just do frame by frame, and you could do basic movement. You have to create a new layer if you want to transform, like make the ball look like it's squished. You have to create a new layer for it and hide the other layers. But with frame animation, you don't have to do all that. You could create you could do transforms. Wait, what did I just open? With video timeline, I mean. If you create a video timeline, you'll see that it looks a little bit different. It gives you this timeline right here. Right now, I think it's what? Let me press play. 2, 3, 4. I think it's like 5 seconds long total. So this little portion, this purple right here, that's your timeline. It's just zoomed out right now, so it looks kind of small. But if I zoom in by dragging this slider from the smaller mountain to the larger one, you could actually see that this is what it would look like now if I press play. See, this time slider indicates your current position in the video. I think it's 30 frames. Yeah, it is 30 frames per second right now. Although you could change that. How do we change it though? Uh, Maybe not. I don't know. I don't see an option to change the frames per second. But anyways, 30 is the standard. That's what we want. 30 frames per second. So if you look at the timeline, you're gonna be confused maybe at first. There's 10F, 20F, and then the next one is 1 minute F, or 01:00F. This is 1 second. So if this is 10 frames, that's 20 frames. This is 30 frames. So at 30 frames, we're at 1 second in the animation. 1, 2, 3. So at 3 seconds, we're here. So that's how you read that. You could zoom in even more if you want to see individual frames. You could see there's frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, frame 4, but I'm zoomed in way into the timeline right now because I moved the slider all the way to the right. And then to do some basic animation, what should we do first? Let me show you an example with the ball here as well. Let's create a video timeline and then let me draw a ball. Let's go to layers and let's do a ball. So this time we're using timeline, so we get some extra abilities here. First of all, we can let's open up the layer. We can do things with the frame animation. I could have also lowered opacity, done all that with the tweening, but here we have what's called these keyframes that we can add. It's a little yellow diamond. Basically, what that diamond means is it's like a checkpoint or a save point of your image. So at this point of the image, this ball is here. Hold on, let me get rid of the artboard because that annoys me. File, new. Let's turn off artboards. I don't understand the point of artboards. So draw the ball, create video timeline, zoom in on that timeline a little bit. Oops, drew the ball on a white background. Make sure you draw that ball on its own layer, not on the white background. And And then we could animate this from this position to this position, but pick where you want that to happen. So let's say at 0, it's up here, and if that's what we want, for sure we want from the start of the animation, that's where we want this to be. Then open the drop down for layer 1, where that, let me just call it circle so we're not confused. So that layer, I named it circle. We can see here it got named circle as well. So this is just the layer names. So if I want this to be saved up here, then I can add a keyframe for the position. So now the position of the ball being up here is saved. I can also add keyframes for the opacity and the style. So maybe up here, the style I want is maybe a drop shadow. Let's make that drop shadow. Yeah, we'll make it black and have it increase the distance. Let's say it's up there. Let's do that. Okay, so we have a drop shadow. So everything is saved now, the position, opacity, and style. Only thing problem right now though is there's no option to save the transform. Right, if we want to squish the ball or something, it's not here. But if we right click on the circle layer and say convert to smart object, then all of a sudden we have, instead of position, we have transform. Okay, so if you are gonna try to squish the ball or add transforms and record the transformations, you need to convert it to a smart object first, because that way it'll give you a transform keyframe instead of just a position. So obviously that's better, because then you can do, instead of just moving something and recording the movement, you could record the scale, rotation, and I don't know about warp and distort, but it's enough that we can now transform it and save that as well. So we could say the ball starts here by setting a keyframe there. So the position is saved, but also the size of the ball. Let me turn on opacity and style again and add the drop shadow. And then let's say at 1 second, we want this to be down here. And maybe also at the same time, oops, actually before I do anything, let me make sure I add a keyframe for my, oh no,
How
huh?
did you drag
How did I what?
how did you drag the circle so it aligns
Oh,
on the path
uh,
for
you want to move it straight down, hold shift.
oh no, like I'm talking about like the clip, like
Huh?
the clip.
The clip?
Yeah, like the clip. Um like it's yeah, like for mine, uh like when I turned it on for some reason it moves over to the left. It shifted over to the left
What
for the
shift?
circle.
The
The
circle?
in the purple line.
Oh, this?
Yeah, it moved all the way to the left, and I can't see it for some reason.
Oh, just drag it with the slider here. You might be zoomed in too much.
Oh,
Yeah, you could zoom in and out on that. So the more you move this to the right, the longer the purple gets.
so complicating. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
it's, but
You
it's
are
basic
you
video editing tools, or they're all gonna be like that. Like I could open up After Effects, so it's good to get used to this because if you it'll be an easier transition to doing video editing if you already know how to use Photoshop's timeline. Um, or
what's the
any
difference between the create clipping, I mean create the video versus the other thing that you did in the previous
the
one?
frame animation is just it's more basic, right? The one I showed you before, you can only
Yeah.
you can only move things around and maybe lower the opacity and do some tweening, which just adds frames in between for you if you moved something from here to here.
Well,
But that's
and
basically all you can do with that. But with this one, you can drop keyframes to save, let's say, the the position of this ball, what opacity it's at, what style it has. I could save all of that information, and I did save it because you could see here. Let me grab the
shadow.
magnifier.
Does the drop shadow make a big difference in the movement?
No, it makes no difference. I'm just adding a drop shadow to show you that you can animate your drop shadow as well. You can't do
So
that in the frame animation. You can only do that with timeline animation.
so each layer you have to put a drop shadow?
No, 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 no. Don't be confused by the drop shadow. I just put it there just to show you that you can. Here, I'll turn it off. Turn off the drop shadow. Um, Let me show you the basic same thing we did with the frame animation first, and then I'll show you this. I'm just trying to show that this has additional features.
Okay.
So let's just do a transform. So um, the ball is up here. Let's get rid of the drop shadow. Delete the effect. Okay, so you click this button here to add a keyframe. Um,
How do you create a timeline again? The
this
video
whole
part?
thing,
Yeah.
it's under window timeline. I already created it. I have to start over. File, new.
Mm-hmm.
You have to click the drop down and switch from frame animation to video timeline. And then
What is frame animation
that's the one I showed before. This is,
before?
yeah,
Oh.
the one where you draw each frame.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so the frame that was a different. Wait,
Yeah.
how did you do that? How does it? Oh, so you just add one? Are you copying and pasting it, or?
No, that my bad. If you want to make the ball look like it's moving, just draw
Mhm.
one. Oops. You're gonna have the one layer, and
Yeah.
it's better if I draw this on a separate layer, not on the background.
Mm-hmm.
Erase that. Make a new ball. So
Mm-hmm.
each frame, you could move the ball.
Uh-huh. Oh, each frame. But how do you know? Oh,
You have to
one.
you create the frame by clicking the plus sign. So right now I only have one frame, and in that first frame, the ball is here. On the
Oh,
second frame, the ball is
yeah.
still there, but if I move it, now it's not. So on the first frame, it's there. On the second
Uh-huh.
frame, it's here. You could always
So you
move
can
it.
make as many frames as you want.
Yeah. And then if you want the ball to go from here to here, but right now this is my animation. It's
Yeah,
just
this is so
jumping back and
nifty.
forth. It's even better with the video timeline. So this one give the most advanced feature of this probably the fact that you could do a tween. which lets you fill in the in-between frames.
How do you do that? Oh, oh, in between, between animation.
You do that with, you click on the second frame and then click the tween button, which is the one next to the plus sign, to the left of it, not the trash
Oh,
can.
I see it. Yeah, I see.
When you click that, it'll ask you how many frames you want to add.
Yeah, previous frame.
And if you want 1 second of animation, because the standard for animation or movies, any video is 30 frames per second. So
Okay.
if I add 28 between these two, then I'll have a total of 30. So this is a 1 second animation. So basically, it'll add
This one?
28 balls in going from there to there. Or let me do something else. Let's also lower the opacity because that can also be saved. So first frame is here, second frame it's here, but let's also lower the opacity. So let's say 11.
How about the, so if you do it after 2, what it does is it adds 28 of the same thing?
No, it adds the in between because I only did one ball here and one ball here. So if I tween, it will add another
Oh, in
ball
the in
there. Yeah, so it just adds everything in between for you. And because I lowered the opacity, you can see it fades out as it moves to the right. So you could also do that.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's good for more simple frame by frame animations like these, like a walk cycle. But if you want to do more advanced stuff, you should use the other type. You should use a video timeline. And actually, there's a way to convert. If you click the options here, you could say convert to video timeline. Now we have the other type of animation. So,
Okay. Oh yeah, sorry. You could do whatever you were doing before. I interrupted.
well, we're out of time anyway. But anyways, it is kind of complicated, so we'll spend a little more time on it tomorrow. Um,
The waterfall, that was good example.
yeah, but before we get to the waterfall, we gotta understand those basics of how it's gonna actually work.
Hard. Kind of hard skill.
Once you do it a couple times, it'll be easy.
I guess so.
Hopefully. Anyways, it's 9:53, so let me give you guys the sign out code.
Will you be posting the recording for this class period?
Yeah, I'm still recording right now.
Well, you will post it on Discord?
Google Classroom.
Google Classroom. Okay, where all the